this ugly
pick up.
drum set thing.
All right.
Dave, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
I'm very excited that you would accept our invitation to be here.
It's the mac and cheese.
It's the mac and cheese. How many came for the mac and cheese? Just be honest. All right, we love you too.
I came for you. Well, I came to see you too.
Was mac and cheese a big part of your training regimen?
Not too much. Not so much.
I just want to get out of the way, and if you would tell us what it took, your story on what led you to the Olympics and what that was all about.
Yeah, growing up, I played a little bit of football and basketball and tried all kinds of different sports. And I remember, in fact, in my neighborhood pool, going to take swim lessons. And when I was a little kid, I took swim lessons and I flunked because I couldn't float on my back. True story. And I don't know who that teacher was, but I'd love to show her something. But so I went back and took swim lessons, and the swim lesson person, the teacher, was the swim coach for the little neighborhood pool, and she just said, "Hey, you got a good stroke, you got to come out for the swim team." And I said, I'm just a dumb kid. I said, "Yeah, sure, whatever." And I think I was 10 at the time. I didn't fit any 10-year-olds.
And we have a lot of dumb 10-year-olds. Are you a dumb 10-year-old? Raise your hand.
No, don't raise your hand. But and so. I really was attracted to swimming more than the other sports I was doing because I was really beating more of my friends in swimming than I was. I mean, it was just that simple. And so I was very blessed with some very, very good coaching and programs. And when I started, I had some early success and at the state level, and even at age 12 was ranked nationally. But at age 15, 16, there were people that were beating me. I couldn't even make the finals. It was really a down time. And I remember thinking, I was a Christian, and I remember thinking to myself, first of all, you have success, and then you're tanking, and I was just not swimming well. It was very, very discouraging. A lot of my friends were beating me that I used to beat all the time. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, I don't really know what's going on, but I just felt like, God, I know you've given me gifts, and I'm going to keep working at it, even though right now I don't really feel like these gifts are working for me, and I'm not even sure you're out there paying attention because I'm really not doing well in my swimming. And then as I got older and got into high school, I started improving more compared to my friends, and my junior year in high school and my senior year in high school, my strokes were backstroke and butterfly. And I was ranked number 1 in the country in high school in both those events. I ended up having both national high school records, including one of the commentators on that film there was Mark Spitz, and I broke his national high school record.
I remember Mark Spitz.
Yes.
I remember Mark Spitz.
Nobody remembers, only the parents. Thank you, parents. And so that was fun because it was like the oldest record in the books, and so. But I think the TV makes everybody look like it's just easy, and they just kind of stepped up and became stars. But my career had a lot of ups and downs. Even when I got into college, my freshman year I swam slower than I did my senior year in high school. If I had swam the same race, the same speed. My freshman year in college, I'd have been 3rd in the NCAAs and as a freshman, but I didn't do it. And so, it was just a lot of struggles, and just kind of, I had some great coaches who believed in me, and I just kind of kept working, whether I was having success at the time or not.
What was doing the up and down? Is it a matter of physical development changing?
Yeah, that was a lot of it. I was a late bloomer, so the guys that I was beating at age 12 suddenly were huge at age 13 and 14 and were destroying me. And I didn't catch back up to them until I was about 16. And so there were 3 or 4 years there that were really tough, where the events I was winning, I wasn't even making it into the finals, in the final 8. So I'd swim in the morning at prelims, and then I'd go home because I didn't even make the finals. And that was, defending state champion, now not even in the finals. It's pretty tough. Yeah.
Was there a point where I don't know, is it a natural thing? I've never been a big winner like you saw how this works, but do you win, and at a certain point, people are like, you're this close to being to the Olympics, and you should just dedicate on that? Or is it an inner goal that says, hey, this would be awesome, I wanna do this?
Well, for me, I remember I was 11 and I watched Mark Spitz win 7 gold medals. And at that time, it was unheard of.
And he had the stash.
Yeah, he had the stash. That's right. He was cool. And he won 7 medals in swimming. And at 11, I remember watching the TV thinking, one day I want to do that. But, I didn't know what I was saying. I just thought it was cool. I wanted to be cool. And so you just, you're continuing to work and you have goals. The Olympics is way up there and you got to figure out, okay, if I'm here and the goal's way up there, what are the 99 steps I got to take? And because if you just focus on that, then it's discouraging because I'm way off. And so there was all these little steps I was taking. And so but you're right, there became a point where, about 2 years out from the Olympic trials, all of a sudden it's like, you've got a shot at this. And I remember I didn't want to think about that. I didn't want that pressure because it was just, I don't know, it was just a lot of pressure. And I remember I had a coach. I'll never forget this. I was sitting on the sidelines after swimming, and he came up to me and said, he said, do you think you can make the Olympic team? And I probably didn't make any eye contact with him and just kind of sunk my head and said, gee whiz, coach, I really hope so. Well, what he said to me was, he said, you need to start telling yourself that you're an Olympian. You need to say it to yourself out loud. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do that, and that sounds really weird and kind of cocky, and But his point was, if you don't believe you can do it, then you're not going to do it. And so I started saying, I'm an Olympian, and thinking to myself, I'm an Olympian, and really allowing myself to say, you know what, I think I might be able to do this. And but going in the Olympic trials, and the way the Olympic trials work, everybody swims in the morning, and then the final 8 swim at night, and first and second make the team, and everybody else goes home. And it doesn't matter if you're the world record holder, or if your dad invented the stroke, it doesn't matter. It's just whoever touches the wall, first and second, makes the team, and everybody else goes home. And going in Olympic trials, I was ranked 4th. And so there were 3 guys, including the world record holder, I'd never beaten in my career.
It's one shot.
It's one shot, yes. You have a bad day.
There's 3 days, we're going to race 8 times.
No, it's not best out of 3. It's one shot. And if you have a bad day, you have a bad day. And I can remember once in practice just swimming terrible and just not wanting to be there. Really kind of hoping the coach would just throw me out because I looked so pitiful. And he stopped me and Wilson, and I thought, all right, good, I'm going to get thrown out. I can finally go home. He said, what's wrong with you? I said, Coach, I just don't feel good. He said, what happens if you don't feel good at Olympic trials? I just thought, oh man, that means I got to keep swimming, right? And so here's kind of an interesting story. The race before my race in Olympic trials was the 200 butterfly. And there was a guy in 1980, and this is all ancient history to most of you guys, but in 1980, U.S. boycotted Olympics. For a long story, didn't make much sense at the time. But anyway, and he was a world record holder, but he couldn't go to the Olympics.
And so you understand, boycotting the Olympics is no Olympic athlete from the United States competed.
Mm-hmm.
So every person who had trained for that moment was just, sorry, we're not doing it.
Watched it on TV.
See you in 4 years.
Yeah,
if you're still good in 4
if you're
years,
still
maybe
good in 4
you can come
years.
back and try again.
So this guy was a world record holder, broke the world record in 1980, broke it between 1980 and 1984, probably 5 or 6 more times. I mean, he was just awesome. Olympic trials in 1984, he's a world record holder, ranked number 1, obviously. Has a bad race at the finals and gets 3rd. Doesn't make the Olympic team. Holding the world record. Has to go home, watch a guy from Germany break his world record in the 200 fly. And so it is very, I was talking to someone before, I would admit, the pressure is unbelievable. And that's where I just had to say, okay, God, you're the one that's given me this talent. You're the one that's given me this great coaching and ability. And I had a hard training work ethic. I mean, I was willing to do whatever it took. But I made the Olympic team by 12/100ths of a second. That was the difference between making the Olympic team and not making the Olympic team, was 12/100ths of a second. So I tell people, don't cut your fingernails.
That's nasty.
But yeah,
winners don't come.
Yeah, don't, yeah. But, 1,200 of a second, so, I was not favored to make the Olympic team. I wasn't, oh, he's an automatic. I mean, it was a dogfight.
How's it feel to race that race? What's different about that race than any other? Are you just burning yourself out thinking, if I die at the end of this race, this is what it's gonna
Yeah,
be?
you know, it's funny because in swimming there's a clock on the board. You know, you start at this end, there's a clock now at that end, and so when you touch the wall, you probably saw it in the Olympics. The swimmers would touch the wall, immediately turn around, look down the other end, and see the clock. Well, in backstroke, as you flip, you can look up to see what position you're on at the halfway point. Now, coach tells you don't do that, stay focused, but of course everybody does. And knowing I had to be first or second, and I was third at the 50 at the halfway point. And I thought, okay, well that's all right because I'm always strong in the second half. And this is Olympic trials. And at halfway down the pool, there's a it's not a flag, but it's a line that goes across, just so you can kind of see where you are. Because backstroke, you know, you're swimming upside down and backwards, so you don't really know where you are. So I saw that line. I said, okay, this is where I dig in, and this is where I just really am strong, and all my training's going to kick in, and I'm going to do great. And my legs just went numb. And I remember vividly thinking to myself, oh man, this is really bad. And this is gonna sound corny, but I really did this. I remember it very, very well. I remember swimming thinking, okay, this is gonna be the last swim of my career. You know, Lord, if this is the last swim of my career, I'm gonna give you everything I've got. And I swam till, you know, till my eyes bled. I mean, I swam, I gave everything I got that class, but I just felt nothing. And I touched the wall, looked back up at the board and saw a 2 next to my name. I couldn't believe it. And in the tape, which I very seldom watch because the Olympic tape's fun to watch, the Olympic trials tape is nauseating to watch. It was where I went dead is where I started moving on the field. And so for me, I just know the Lord's hand was there. And why he had me make the Olympic team, I don't know. I'm grateful. It was a total gift because again, 1,200 seconds, you can't even measure that. I mean, the 2 hands come over at the same time and touch the wall at the same time. You can't, but if your eye looked at it, you didn't know who won, who was second, who was third, you'd never be able to pick it out. That's how close it was. What was your question?
I don't know. I'm just I'm reliving a lot of my own swimming experiences, which are dramatically different than yours. But I can vouch for the validity of the statement that if you tell yourself you will never make the Olympics, it will come true.
Yeah.
Because I didn't. The difference then, how did the game change once you had become part of the Olympic team? This is a whole different world.
Yeah, it's a whole different world. I mean, they assembled the team right there, and so we start training together. And so I was training with Rick, who was the world record holder at the time, number one in the world for 4 or 5 years. It's you know, you're on cloud 9. It's just like this dream. You know, you're just kind of with this team, and you're getting all this special treatment, and you're doing all this training, but all of a sudden, about 3 weeks out, it hits you. Oh, wait a minute! I got a couple more races I got to do. You know, and this is at the Olympics, and this is kind of serious, and so you just buckle down, and by then you know what you need to train to get to where you need to be, and that was part of the great coaching I had. I'll never forget my freshman year, very first practice, my coach stood up and said, my job is to teach you how to coach yourself. It didn't make any sense, but I really understood it when I was at Olympic trials because, I mean, when we were part of the team, because we didn't have our normal coaches. They were Olympic coaches. So it was like my coach was the backfield coach from UCLA, and the head coach was from LA. So it was all different coaches. And so they would come to us and say, okay, what do you need? What kind of training do you need? And if we just said, gee, coach, I don't know, it would have been a really bad situation. So it was like, okay, here's what I need. I know what I need to get ready. Because in 6 weeks, I got to swim faster than I've ever swum before.
And Rick Carey got a lot of the attention in that one, obviously, and he did great, but you were, what, about a second behind?
About half a second.
Half a second behind.
Half a second behind.
It was a tremendous race.
Yeah, that was the fastest time I ever did in that race, my last one. So I was really proud of that.
Yeah.
because it's really easy to get up there and look around at all the distractions and freak out. And, you know, because you're standing there, of course, the lights and the camera, and, you know, you saw the camera guys, you know, looking up your nostril, and there's, you know, 20,000 people there, and there's a lot of distractions, but, you know, you look down the pool, and it's the same distance, the same width as every pool I've ever trained in, so that's kind of what you have to focus on.
Now, to get to that point, what kind of restrictions, what type of disciplines did you have to have in place? Did it make your life vastly different than what was around you, or were you out there with the cheeseburger and fries and the chocolate and all?
I do like chocolate milkshakes, I must say. But no, that's a good question, and I do remember in high school, we would practice in the afternoons after school, but Saturday was always the hardest practice, and it was the longest practice, and it was always the hardest practice. Well, Friday, like all football, like all high school, was your football games, right? And those are fun. You get to hang out with your friends. And so every Friday, I had to make a decision. After the game, am I going to go home and get some sleep because I've got the toughest practice of the week coming up? And the coach was, you know, he would make it hard just to see who stayed up late. Or am I going to hang out with my friends and have fun? Now, you know, I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, where, you know, it's cold and there's snow, so to say, I got to go home early because I got swim practice in the morning. A lot of my friends looked at me like, what are you talking about? You know, that didn't make any sense. So they didn't really understand what I was doing. But again, I knew what I needed to do. And I also realized that I had this goal, but they didn't have that goal for me, right? I mean, it's not that they didn't like me. I mean, they were my friends, but they didn't know what I needed to do. I had to understand what I needed to do to make the goals, to make the Olympic team, to make whatever goal I was shooting for. And so I think they respected my decision, but I don't think they really understood why I was going home when everybody else was going out and having fun. But I was talking to someone the other day, and they asked, was it worth all the sacrifices? You know, and yeah, I was a swimmer, but I mean, some of you, if you play, you know, football, basketball, or the piano, or guitar, or whatever it is, there's things you have to do that other people don't have to do if you want to be good at that, right? I mean, it's just logical. And so someone was asking me, was it worth all the sacrifices? And I remember thinking to myself, you know, that was my goal to do that. I chose to go in early on Friday so I could have a good practice on Saturday or a good meet on Saturday. So to me, they weren't sacrifices. They were just things I had to do because I knew this is where I wanted to go. Now, from other people's perspective, it might have looked like a sacrifice because I was missing out. But at the end of the day, I had some experiences. And we talked earlier. I got to go to some international meets all over the world behind Iron Curtain. They don't know what Iron Curtain is, but that a lot of my friends never had the opportunity to do. So, you know, there's a balance, and I wasn't a complete nerd, I don't think. I think I had one friend I remember specifically that talked to me in public.
This is so encouraging.
Yeah. I remember he would talk to me in public, so that was good. But you know, I didn't view it as, you know, woe is me, golly, I gotta go in, everybody feels sorry for me. It was just, if I wanted to do good on Saturday or to meet or practice, this is what I had to do. Or if I stayed out late, it would hurt the next morning.
Yeah, you're gonna pay for it.
I'm gonna pay for it.
So with the parallel, and obviously this is what I was thinking, you would know better than almost anybody. The parallel between the disciplines that you had to observe in order to achieve what you achieved, which was, I mean, it's phenomenal to sit back. Do you ever just sit back and think, at that moment, I was the top 2 humans in the world who could swim? Is that kind of an amazing thing?
Well,
Like when your kids whip you at Nintendo,
yeah,
you just sit back and think, I could swim.
I could swim. You know what's funny though? It's every 4 years at the Olympics. You know, they just have them, right? Everybody watched them. It's fun. It's kind of, you can't help but kind of relive it and just those emotions. because, you know, whether they're in the ready room or they're warming up or whatever they're, you know, on the blocks, it's like, okay, I know exactly what that feels like and where they were, where they are. And what's cool is, the guy who was commentating, Rowdy Gaines, who was the commentator, he was my roommate in Logan Village.
Oh, that's
So it's kind of fun, he did a great job though. So.
Well, those disciplines that took you to that point in your swimming career, are there parallels that you see in your walk with Christ? Tell us a little bit about what your relationship with God and Christ has been throughout your life when you became a Christian.
I think, well, I became a Christian at a young age. My grandfather was a retired Baptist minister, and he came and talked to me one day, and I was, you know, I was probably 7 or 8 years old, and all I knew was I was not allowed to say the word hell in my house, okay? So I figured it was not a good place to go. That was the level of my understanding. And so when he gave me the option of do I want to go to hell or heaven, it was a pretty easy decision. But I can remember kneeling down at our ugly green couch we had at the time and praying and asking God to come into my life because I knew that I couldn't get there. I couldn't be good enough to earn. He was not going to look down and go, wow, that Dave Wilson, he's a neat guy. He's really trying hard. I'm going to let him into heaven, right? So I knew that I had to transfer my faith from what I was doing to what he already did. And that would get me off the hook. But that was really kind of the basis of my understanding until in high school I got into a Bible study. And I went to church, and so I knew the stories, and then the guy with the color jacket, the guy in the whale, the guy, you know, seen the movies and all that kind of stuff. But I never really understood it and got into a Bible study, and it just got me so excited about this Christian life, which I didn't really know much about. I knew if I got hit by a car, I was going to heaven, but that's about all I knew. And so I guess if you could chart my spiritual growth, it was flat when I was on cruise control. Okay, when I shifted out of cruise control and got into a Bible study, my spiritual life grew. Then I would get in cruise control again, and it really took off when I started studying the Bible, and because I wanted to teach, my wife and I started teaching young married Sunday school class. This is probably 15 years ago, almost 20 years ago, so we're really old. And that forced me in the Word, and that got me excited about the Word, and that's when my spiritual growth took off. So what I found with my own, and this isn't for everybody, but my spiritual growth, when I sat under great teaching, and I sat under great teaching, and was in a small group Bible study with Andy Stanley, but I was not growing spiritually because I wasn't doing anything. I was just kind of learning, and it didn't really, I wasn't even sure why I was learning it because I didn't have any application. I wasn't putting myself out there. You know, I mean, the testimony from this video, people saying, I want to go back because what I got out of it, because they were out there serving. And so my spiritual growth really took off when I started serving and wanting to teach others because I had to make sure I understood it. I had to make sure I understood how to answer all those questions. That's when my spiritual life really took off. So I was a Christian at the Olympics. I completely gave God the glory and totally understand it was only by His grace and His hand that I made the team and walked away with 2 medals.
Do we have any questions that any of you are burning to ask and wondering about? I can see some of the people represented here. This is going to be a bizarre experience for you today.
What is life like at the Olympic Village?
In the Olympic Village?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been getting a lot of weird press. It wasn't, I don't remember it being that way. For us, my Olympics was in, they weren't actually my Olympics, but the Olympics I participated in.
You can have it. You earned it.
Thank you. We're in Los Angeles. So the Olympic Village was the USC campus, University of Southern California. And what was cool about it is all the athletes were in the same place. We all ate in the same, so you would, and as swimmers, just doing different meets, you got to meet some of the people from different countries. But it was fun even to, like on our team was Mary Lou Retton. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Mary Lou Retton. But it was just fun to get to know, and so it was, you knew, it was interesting because you knew it was something that was a once in a lifetime, euphoric, incredible opportunity, but you also knew you had to kind of stay plugged in because you had a job to do. You know what I'm saying? It was kind of that, this is really cool, look at all this, but then it was like, oh yeah, on Friday I gotta swim, I gotta be ready. And so, and then after the Olympics, after my swimming's always the first week like it was this year. And then the second week, with one of those, you saw those name things, the credentials that athletes have, we were allowed to go see other sports. And so I had friends like played water polo, and we went and saw basketball, and you know, so we got to go do some neat things. So it was, the whole time you realized you were kind of living in fairyland for a while. It was pretty cool.
Is it true that Mary Lou Retton's the only thing that was between you and being the bubbly face?
I think, yeah, she stole it, yeah, I think she stole that from me, right.
Got one back here.
This is, okay. What did it feel like when you first achieved and won the first gold medal after you worked so hard?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I think that's a hard one because it's one of those things you've been wanting and working for so long, and all of a sudden you've achieved it, and it's just this. For me, it was just overwhelming gratitude because in that race, they talked about the guy in lane 8 who was from Canada who went out like a rocket. He was actually ahead of me at the halfway point. Between second and third, he was third or second. Between second and third was like 14 100ths in a second. It was really, really close. And so to get the silver medal and the U.S. to go 1-2 was just, it's just hard to explain, you know. It was just this huge relief, this huge joy, this huge sense of gratitude. And for me, it was very, it was just very, I can remember, this is a little bit off the subject, but I can remember the night I broke in high school, Mark Spitz National High School record. And the press had come out that day saying, you know, that I could do it, and so the pool was packed with people, and it wasn't even the final state meet. It was, I wish they had done that. And it was kind of like, you know, if I didn't do it, I would have been killed. You know, it was just, and so, but I can remember after that night, breaking the National High School record, and walking at the end, all the cars were gone, walking out with my dad, and I just had this sense of just calm, just not down, but just almost just this, and he asked me, you know, what are you feeling? And I just said, I just feel really humbled. You know, here was this record that was in the books for 14 years. This guy won more gold medals than anybody, and I was the guy who got to break his National High School record. So I think it was just a flood of emotions: joy, gratitude, just being humble, just going, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did it. This has been my dream, and it just occurred. It just happened, you know. And I don't know if that answers the question, but that's kind of how I felt. It's still kind of weird. Good, thumbs up.
Did anything change for you after you got home from the Olympics?
Well, I always joke that I still didn't take the garbage out, but
Faster than anybody
yes,
on your block.
that's exactly right, especially when it rained.